The ordinary act that sparked everything. The transport ship moved slowly through the endless stars, carrying travelers from many worlds. It was a massive vessel designed for long journeys, and its corridors were filled with strange faces and unfamiliar voices. Creatures with glowing eyes, scaled skin, and strange horns walked beside humans. Merchants, traders, and soldiers all were tired, restless, and waiting for the long ride to end. In the middle of this crowded space sat a young human soldier. His uniform was simple, not decorated with medals. He looked ordinary, almost invisible among the grand robes of alien nobles and the glittering armor of alien guards. He carried himself with quiet strength, but he did not try to stand out. He was only one human among hundreds of beings far older, far stronger, and far more powerful. The air was heavy with the sound of alien languages. Some passengers argued, others remained silent. Most avoided looking at anyone else. In this galaxy, weakness was often punished. Respect was demanded through power, not kindness. To be small, fragile, or slow was to be ignored. Then it happened. An alien elder entered the cabin. His back was bent with pain, his body trembling as he leaned on a long walking staff. His skin was pale silver, with deep glowing lines running across it like fading rivers of light. Every step looked heavy, as though it cost him a battle of its own. His eyes searched for a seat, but there was none. All the benches were full, no one moved. The passengers glanced at him briefly, then turned away. A few looked amused, whispering to each other. Weakness did not earn sympathy here. To them, an elder was already half dead, no longer useful. Why should anyone give up comfort for one who had already lived their time? The elder held his staff tightly, his breathing shallow. He swayed, almost falling. Still, no one rose. Not even those of his own kind. Some even looked disgusted, as if the sight of weakness was shameful. The elder's lips trembled, but he said nothing. He tried to remain proud, but his body betrayed him. The young human soldier saw everything. His jaw tightened. His heart told him what to do. Slowly, he stood up. His boots tapped softly against the metal floor. His voice, calm but firm, broke the silence. The whisper. Through the crowd, the silence inside the transport ship did not last long. Like ripples moving across still water, whispers began to spread from one side of the cabin to the other. At first they were soft, almost hesitant, but soon the voices grew louder, the tones sharper. Every alien eye was fixed on the human soldier, and every whispered word carried disbelief, confusion, and even anger. No one understood what had just happened, and yet they all felt the weight of it. A scaled merchant with golden ridges across his skull leaned close to his companion and muttered, "Humans are reckless, they know nothing of our ways. This one acts without thought, offering his place to an elder as if honor were a gift to give." Another alien with glowing mandibles hissed, "Kindness from a human is nothing. It is weakness dressed as virtue. He should be ignored." Yet not all agreed. In the far corner, a cloaked traveler spoke in hushed tones. "I have heard stories of humans, strange stories. They do not measure strength the way we do. Perhaps this is not weakness, but something else." The elder sat quietly in the seat, his head bowed slightly, his staff resting against his legs. His expression was unreadable, but his silence only added fuel to the rumors. Some passengers believed he was ashamed to accept help. Others believed he was testing the human. But no one dared to question him openly. He was old, yes, but he carried an aura of dignity that commanded respect. Even in frailty, the human soldier stood calmly, hands clasped behind his back. He could feel the weight of dozens of eyes burning into him, but he did not flinch. To him, the act had been simple. Someone needed help, and he offered it. But in this galaxy where mercy was rare and compassion seen as weakness, his choice was far from simple. It was an open challenge to centuries of unspoken rules. The whispers grew more dangerous. They were no longer just about curiosity. They carried tones of warning. "He does not know what he has done," said one alien with a jagged jaw. "When the guard learns of this, they will not forgive him. another responded sharply. Or they may see him as a threat. Humans are unpredictable, and this one is already standing too tall. Still others muttered of omens and prophecies, their voices trembling as if a shadow of fate had just moved across the cabin. Some passengers shifted uneasily. Their instincts told them something monumental had just taken place, though they could not yet name it. The bow of the Elder still lingered in their minds. A bow, from a decorated warrior of a proud race, given to a human. No one could erase the image. No one could pretend it had not happened. It would be remembered, retold, and reshaped by every mouth that carried it. Hidden among the crowd, small recording devices glimmered faintly. Their lenses captured every movement, every whispered word, and every glance. These were not simple passengers. They were informants, spies and traders of secrets already. Encrypted signals were being sent across hidden channels. The moment was too rare, too strange, too valuable to ignore. By the time the ship reached its next station, half the sector would already know of the human soldier who earned a bow from an alien elder. The human remained unaware of how quickly the whispers spread. He stood steady, his eyes focused forward, his breathing calm. He did not understand that his action had already left the realm of kindness and entered the realm of politics. For him, it was still a simple moment of compassion. For the galaxy, it was the breaking of a tradition older than empires. One alien noble leaned closer to another and hissed, "Mark my words, this will not end here. The Elder has chosen him, and the guard will respond." The other noble frowned. "Do you truly believe the guard would bow to a human?" The first leaned back, eyes narrowing. "I do not believe. I fear." The Elder finally lifted his head, his glowing eyes scanning the cabin. His gaze moved over every face before resting once more on the human. He said nothing, but the silence that followed his glance was more powerful than any speech. The passengers quieted, their whispers shrinking. Yet the tension grew heavier. It was the silence before a storm. Somewhere deep within the ship, the hum of the engines shifted, signaling that docking procedures had begun. The transport was nearing one of the largest alien stations in the sector. A fortress of steel and fire guarded by elite forces. Many passengers prepared themselves, adjusting their clothes, checking their devices, and steadying their nerves. But the human felt none of this. He remained calm, unaware that the moment of truth was fast approaching. The whispers did not stop. They followed him like shadows, whispers of doubt, fear, and curiosity. By the time the ship touched the station, the whispers had grown into stories. Stories that would soon reach ears far beyond this cabin. Stories that would call forth powers he had never dreamed of facing. "Sir, you can take my seat," the Elder blinked. His glowing eyes widened in shock. Around them, whispers began to spread. "A human," someone muttered. "Did he just offer his seat?" Another whispered with disbelief. The soldier gestured again. Kind and patient, the Elder hesitated. His kind valued strength above all things. To accept help was seen as weakness. But his body shook with pain, and finally, slowly, he lowered himself into the seat. His staff leaned against the bench. His hands trembled as he gripped the edge. The cabin fell into silence. The other passengers stared at the human as if he had committed some strange crime. A few laughed quietly, mocking him. Others simply frowned. The human ignored them all. He stood quietly, steady on his feet, his face calm, as if he had done nothing unusual. The Elder lowered his head. A faint glow shimmered across his forehead as he spoke softly. "You give honor to one who has no worth left." The soldier shook his head. "Everyone has worth," he said simply. His words were plain, but they carried weight. The Elder studied him for a long moment, his chest rising and falling with slow breaths. Then, in a gesture rarely seen, the Elder bowed his head, not in pain, but in respect. The cabin reacted with shock. Gasps filled the air. An Elder of his kind bowing to a human? Such a thing was unthinkable. It was not weakness, it was recognition. To bow meant to mark another as worthy of respect. Yet this had never been done to a human. Not in living memory. The soldier blinked. A little embarrassed, he did not expect this. He only wanted to help, But now dozens of eyes were locked on him, some filled with confusion, some with quiet anger. The whispers grew louder. Why him? What does it mean? Why bow to a human? Suspicion began to spread like fire. The elder spoke again, his voice low but heavy with meaning. This is no small act, young warrior. You do not yet know what you have started. The soldier said nothing, but deep inside, he felt the weight of the words. He only gave a seat, nothing more, yet somehow, in this galaxy of pride and power, that small act of kindness had broken an unspoken law. As the transport ship drifted onward, the tension grew. Hidden eyes watched, recording, transmitting. Somewhere in the distance, far beyond the stars, his ordinary action was already echoing. The human did not know it yet, but his life was about to change forever. And as the doors prepared to open, the human stood silently, never knowing that his ordinary act had already placed him at the center of something extraordinary. The weight of tradition. The great transport ship finally settled into the docking clamps of the alien station, a shudder running through its frame as engines cooled and systems locked. The passengers stirred with nervous energy, eager to leave the crowded cabin, yet an uneasy silence still lingered in the air. Every eye carried the memory of what they had witnessed. The bow of the elder was not just a gesture. It was a wound cut into the very traditions of his people, and that wound could not be ignored. The elder shifted slowly in his seat, his frail body struggling with stiffness as the ship's systems adjusted. He gripped his staff, its ancient carvings glowing faintly as if echoing his thoughts. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft, yet it carried through the cabin like a command. "Young human," he said, turning his glowing gaze upon the soldier, "do you understand what you have done?" The human soldier blinked in mild confusion. His posture remained steady, his voice calm. "I only gave you my seat, sir," he replied. The simplicity of his answer carried no weight to him, but the words struck the others like thunder. Passengers shifted, some even scoffing under their breath. They knew better. They knew the laws of respect, and they knew that gestures were never simple. The elder exhaled heavily, his hand brushing against the staff as though he carried centuries of memory. "Among my people," he said slowly, "to bow is to surrender pride. It is to declare before all that the one bowed to is higher in honor." His eyes narrowed, and a faint light shimmered across his wrinkled brow. "I bowed to you, human, and my kind does not bow lightly." The soldier's face remained humble. He did not fully grasp the weight of these words. For him, kindness was natural, not a weapon. He had been raised to believe that respect was given to the weak, to the old, to the tired. He had no idea that in alien cultures, mercy was often seen as an insult and kindness a dangerous challenge. The murmurs returned, this time louder. The other passengers could not stay quiet. "This is madness," one alien muttered. "The guard will see this as rebellion," another hissed. "The elder has marked the human. He cannot undo it. And neither can we." A third voice, trembling with awe, whispered, "If a bow was given, then tradition demands acknowledgement. The guard will not stay silent." The soldier glanced around, feeling the heat of the stairs. He still could not understand the storm that had been unleashed, but he began to sense its danger. "I did nothing special," he said softly, hoping to calm the tension. "It was only a seat." "Nothing more." The elder shook his head, his silver skin glowing faintly with each word. "You are wrong, young one. To you it was nothing. But to my kind, it is everything. You have not only shown me respect, you have taken me as your equal. That act demands response." The soldier frowned slightly. Response? The word tasted strange in his mouth. He was beginning to understand that this was no longer just about kindness. This was about tradition, about power, about something much larger than himself. The elder leaned closer, his frail voice carrying sharpness like the edge of a blade. "Know this, human, my bow has bound you. My people will not see you as stranger anymore. They will see you as rival or ally, and when the guard arrives, they will decide which you are." The soldier's chest tightened. not out of fear but of realization. He had walked unknowingly into the web of ancient laws and unyielding pride. He had touched the roots of a tradition older than his world, and now he could not walk away. The whispers swelled into quiet arguments, some predicting his doom, others imagining his rise. The air grew heavy with expectation. Through the large viewing ports of the transport, the alien station loomed into sight. It was a fortress carved into black metal. Wrapped in glowing shields of blue fire, thousands of lights flickered across its surface, each one a reminder of its vast power. Squadrons of ships moved like hunting beasts around it. Their presence was both protection and warning. This was no ordinary station. This was the heart of the Guard, the Empire's pride. The passengers shifted uncomfortably, knowing what awaited them once the doors opened. Soldiers, officers, and commanders would flood in, their armor polished, their weapons precise, and among them would be the elite, the chosen warriors of the Guard. They would not ignore what had happened inside the cabin. They would not ignore the bull. The elder closed his eyes, leaning back into the seat. His voice, though faint, carried the weight of final judgment. "You do not yet understand, young human. You believe you gave me comfort, but what you gave me was far greater. You gave me dignity when all others turned away. That act binds us now, and it binds you to what comes next." The soldier stood silently, his eyes steady, his heart was calm. Yet beneath the calmness lay a growing storm of questions. He did not regret his choice, but he began to wonder what price he would have to pay. He had no way of knowing that the moment he stood from his seat, the course of his life, and perhaps the balance of the galaxy itself, had shifted. The docking clamps tightened. The doors began to open with a low metallic roar. The cabin filled with sharp light as armored boots thundered outside. The whispers stopped instantly, and silence reclaimed the air. Every passenger turned to the human, their gazes heavy with expectation. For better or worse, the Guard was coming, and tradition demanded their judgment. The sudden arrival. The massive transport ship's doors groaned as they opened, a deep metallic sound that echoed like the roar of some ancient beast. The bright light from the docking bay flooded into the cabin, forcing several passengers to shield their eyes. And in that brilliant glow came the sharp rhythm of boots striking steel. The sound was steady, disciplined, and heavy with authority. It was the kind of sound that made even the proudest creatures lower their heads, for it carried the weight of soldiers trained to kill and to protect with equal force. The passengers shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Whispers died in their throats, and the air grew thick with a kind of fear that pressed on every chest. All eyes turned to the entrance, where armored figures began to appear. They were tall, broad-shouldered, their armor gleaming under the harsh station lights. Silver plates layered with black edges covered their bodies, and glowing emblems on their chests marked them as the elite squadron of the Guard. These were not ordinary warriors. These were chosen ones, hand-picked for loyalty, skill, and unshakable discipline. They carried sleek rifles across their backs and blades strapped to their hips. Every movement was precise, every step measured, and even their silence radiated power. The human soldier stood quietly among the crowd, his jaw tightening as he watched the squad enter. He had faced soldiers before, but never ones like these. Their very presence made the air feel heavy, and even the oxygen seemed harder to breathe. He did not move, nor did he shrink back. He stood as he had always stood, calm, steady, and watchful, but his mind was racing. He knew the attention of these soldiers was rarely a blessing, and once it turned toward someone, it seldom left without consequence. The alien elder remained seated, his staff resting across his knees, his glowing eyes softened with an expression that was both sorrowful and proud. He knew what was about to happen, and though he wished he could shield the human from it, tradition gave him no such power. What had been done could not be undone. A bow had been given, respect had been shown, and now the Guard would answer. The elder tightened his grip on the staff and whispered almost to himself, "So it begins." The squad spread into the cabin, forming two sharp lines that cut the space like a blade. Passengers lowered their heads quickly. Afraid of drawing any attention, no one dared to breathe too loudly. The leader of the squad stepped forward. His armor was darker, edged with red markings that glowed faintly. His helmet was crowned with a crest of silver spikes, and when he spoke, his voice carried like thunder, deep and commanding. "Where is the human?" The words struck the air like a weapon. Every passenger stiffened. The whispers that had traveled like fire before now died instantly. Silence fell so deep that the hum of the ship's systems felt like a roar. Slowly, as though guided by one unspoken command, dozens of eyes turned toward the human soldier. The leader of the squad followed their gaze, and his helmet locked onto the human standing quietly at the edge of the cabin. The leader marched forward, the heavy weight of his boots shaking the floor. The rest of the squad snapped to attention, their weapons angled across their chests. The atmosphere was crushing, suffocating, and every alien in the room believed they were about to witness a punishment. They thought the human would be dragged away, accused of dishonor, and executed for daring to upset the ancient traditions of the Elder's kind. But what happened next silenced even their darkest predictions. The squad leader stopped directly in front of the human. For a long moment, no one moved. The soldier's face was calm, his posture unbroken. He looked the armored commander in the eyes, or rather, into the glowing slit of the helmet. The leader raised one hand slowly. Every passenger held their breath. They expected a blow, a strike, a command to seize him. Instead, the armored hand snapped to the chest in a crisp salute. The sound echoed, a sharp metallic clash of armor against armor. Then, as though one being, the entire squad moved in perfect unison. Their hands rose and slammed against their chests, their bodies rigid as they saluted the human soldier. The sound rang like thunder in the cabin. A salute not to a commander of their own kind, not to a decorated general, but to a human who had given up his seat. Gasps filled the room. Aliens clutched their robes. Others pressed back against the walls as though the very laws of reality had been broken. Never in the memory of anyone present had the elite guard saluted a human. Never had they given respect to an outsider, let alone one who carried no rank, no power, no status. Yet here they were, saluting him with the same reverence they gave their own. The human soldier remained still, his chest tightening with confusion. He had not expected this. He had braced himself for punishment, not honor. He opened his mouth slightly, but no words came. His mind was caught between disbelief and silence. He could only watch as the entire squad held their salute with unwavering discipline. The elder finally pushed himself up from the seat, leaning heavily on his staff. His voice cut through the stunned silence. "It is done," he said firmly. His eyes glowed as he looked upon the squad and then back at the human. He gave honor where others gave nothing. He lifted dignity where all turned away. That is the highest act among us, and tradition demands it be recognized. His voice shook, but the strength of his words could not be denied. The squad leader turned his head slightly toward the elder and gave a slow nod. Then he faced the human once more, lowering his salute. The others followed in perfect rhythm. The leader's voice was low but carried power through the cabin. "You are marked now, human. You have been seen, and you will be remembered. From this day, your name belongs to the guard." The weight of those words settled over everyone like a storm. Some looked at the human with awe, others with anger, and still more with fear. What had begun as a small gesture of kindness had now shaken the pillars of tradition. The guard had saluted him, and that was something no power in the galaxy could ignore. The human's jaw tightened. He did not smile. He did not bow. He only stood taller, silent in the storm, but deep inside he felt the pull of fate. He had done nothing more than give up his seat. Yet that simple act had just placed him on a path from which there would be no return. Recognition beyond words. The cabin was silent after the salute. The sound of armored fists striking steel plates still seemed to echo in the air, as if the very walls of the transport ship held the memory of it. The passengers had no words. Their minds fought to accept what they had just witnessed. For generations, the guard had bowed to none but their own commanders. They had saluted kings, generals, and champions of their race, but never a human, never an outsider. Yet, in front of every watching eye, they had saluted this soldier, this man who had offered a simple seat to a frail elder, It was an act so strange that many could not even decide if it was blasphemy or glory. The human soldier stood quietly. His breath came steady, though inside his thoughts turned like storms. He had not asked for this. He had not demanded recognition. He had not even thought his act was worth remembering. He only knew that someone had needed help, and his heart told him to act. But now, in this alien world of rigid tradition and harsh pride, his kindness had become something else, something greater than he had intended. He looked into the glowing visors of the soldiers before him and saw no mockery, no anger, only respect, pure and unshakable, and it unsettled him. The elder rose with difficulty, gripping his staff. His silver skin shimmered faintly as though reflecting the light of 1,000 unseen stars. He stepped forward slowly, each movement watched by the squad and the passengers alike. When he spoke, his voice carried not just to the ears of those in the cabin, but deep into their hearts. "This human," he declared, "has done what many of us have forgotten. He has given honor without demand. He has shown respect without fear, and in doing so, he has reminded us of who we once were before pride consumed us." The murmurs began again, but softer now, filled with awe instead of scorn. Some aliens lowered their heads in shame. Others stared at the human with new eyes. For so long they had mocked compassion, treated kindness as weakness. Yet in this moment, it was compassion that had commanded the guard. The squad leader's voice rumbled like thunder. "By our code, the bow of an elder binds us. His recognition is ours. If he declares this human worthy, then so do we." His words left no room for argument, and yet his tone carried no anger. It was almost reverent. The guard had spoken, and their word was law. The human shifted slightly, his jaw tightening. He did not want to be worshipped. He did not want to be bound by laws he did not understand. "I did not ask for this," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "I only did what was right." The elder turned his glowing eyes toward him. "That is why it matters," he replied. "The greatest honor comes not from those who seek it, but from those who act without desire for reward. You gave me what my own people would not. You gave me dignity, and dignity is worth more than life itself." His staff tapped against the floor as he spoke, each sound carrying the weight of finality. The human's chest rose and fell slowly. He still did not fully grasp why this small act was creating such waves, but he could feel the truth in the elder's words. He had not sought greatness, but greatness had found him. The eyes around him no longer carried just confusion. They carried fear, respect, and for some, hatred. The passengers whispered among themselves again. "If the guard honors him, then who dares to deny it?" One muttered, "But he is still only human." Another spat softly. "Why should they bow to him?" Still another voice, trembling, said, "Because he has broken the silence of centuries. Because he has reminded us that strength is not only in the sword, but in the heart." The guard's salute ended, and their weapons shifted back into place with perfect precision. The squad leader lowered his hand and stepped back. Yet his gaze never left the human. "You are not one of us, but today you are counted among us. The code binds us to respect you, and so respect you shall have." His voice carried no choice, only declaration, it was decided. The elder placed a trembling hand on the soldier's arm. The touch was light but filled with meaning. "Do not think you walk alone now, young one. My bow has tied our fates together, and the guard will not forget. Wherever you go, this story will follow. It will lift you high, but it will also place you in danger. For honor is a crown, but it is also a target." The human nodded slowly, accepting the words even if he did not welcome them. He had never cared for crowns, and he had no interest in fame, but he knew that once a path was laid before him, turning away would no longer be possible. He had lived as a soldier long enough to understand that destiny often arrived when least expected, and when it came, one could only face it with steady heart. The other passengers remained silent now, afraid to challenge what they had witnessed. The salute had silenced their scorn, but their eyes betrayed their turmoil. Some burned with envy, others with anger, and still others with reluctant admiration. Already the tale was growing inside their minds. Already they were shaping it into something greater than it was, and by the time it left their lips, it would be legend. The ship shuddered again as the station's doors opened wider, and the soldiers of the guard began to clear the way. The human knew this was only the beginning. The recognition given here was not the end of the story, but the first chapter of something far larger. What price would come with it, he could not yet imagine. But the words of the elder echoed in his mind like a warning. Honor is a crown, and a crown always draws blood, suspicion, and jealousy. The transport cabin was no longer the same as it had been when the journey began. The atmosphere had changed completely. Where there had once been boredom, routine, and tired silence, now there was tension so sharp it cut into every breath. The guard had saluted a human, the elder had bowed to him, and now nothing felt normal anymore. For some of the passengers it was awe, for some it was disbelief, but for many it was anger. Jealousy slithered like a shadow through the room, settling in the hearts of those who could not accept what they had just seen. A noble, draped in violet robes, leaned close to his companion, his eyes narrow with venom. "Do you see it? The guard, the pride of our people, saluting a creature of flesh and weakness, a human. If word spreads, it will stain us, it will shame us, and others will whisper that we no longer hold our honor." His companion nodded sharply. "We cannot allow this story to grow. If it does, humans will rise where they do not belong, and the balance will shift." Their whispers were not alone. Across the cabin, others spoke in hushed voices, some filled with spite, some with quiet fear. The fire of suspicion had been lit, and it spread with dangerous speed. The human soldier remained standing, calm on the outside, but aware of the shifting air around him. He could feel the weight of the stairs pressing into his back. He had been a soldier long enough to recognize the look of envy, the burning heat of jealousy, and the cold stare of those who already saw him as a threat. He had done nothing to provoke it, yet he knew that in the eyes of many here, his act of kindness had transformed him from nobody into something that could not be ignored, and that alone was enough to make him dangerous. The elder sat back down with a heavy breath, his staff resting against his shoulder. His glowing eyes studied the crowd. Reading their faces with wisdom sharpened by age, he knew exactly what was happening. He had lived long enough to see how easily respect turned into hatred, how quickly admiration could shift into fear, and he knew the human was now in the center of a storm. He leaned closer to the soldier and spoke in a low tone. "Do not mistake their silence for acceptance. Young one, you have been honored, but honor is a coin with two sides. On one side is respect, on the other is jealousy, and jealousy can kill faster than any blade." The human nodded once, his eyes still steady. He understood. He did not need the elder's warning to sense the danger building. He had been on battlefields before, and though no weapon had been drawn yet, this felt the same. It was the quiet moment before the clash, the silent gathering of storms. His instincts told him he was being watched even more closely than before, and not just by the guard. Hidden at the far corner of the cabin, a figure cloaked in shadow activated a small device. Its surface flickered with faint red light before going dark again. The figure's hands moved quickly, sending a silent transmission through encrypted channels. A message traveled outward, beyond the ship, toward unknown allies. "The guard has saluted a human," the transmission carried. "The elder has bowed. Something is shifting. Watch him, follow him, and prepare." The figure's eyes glowed faintly as the device vanished back beneath the cloak. The seeds of conspiracy had been planted. Meanwhile, the whispers of the passengers grew sharper. "This is no honor, it is a trick," one spat. The guard would never lower themselves unless forced. "Perhaps this human has bewitched the elder," another growled. "If the guard begins to bow to humans, then what remains of our pride? We cannot allow them to spread. They must be stopped before their weakness infects us." Yet there were also a few who looked on with quiet admiration, their eyes wide with something like hope. They had lived under a galaxy where kindness was mocked and weakness destroyed, and now, for the first time, they had seen respect born from compassion. It was confusing, frightening, and yet for some, inspiring. The squad of the guard remained unmoved. They stood in rigid silence, their armor gleaming, their discipline unbroken. They had declared their recognition, and they would not take it back. But their stillness only fueled the unease of the passengers. The more silent the guard stood, the more the crowd whispered. The human soldier felt the weight of it all but chose not to speak. He knew his words would only stir the fire further. He simply stood tall, his silence louder than any argument. The elder's voice came again, softer this time. "You must prepare yourself. Human, your name will spread now. It will move faster than ships, faster than any weapon. There will be those who see you as a symbol, and there will be those who see you as a threat. Both will come for you, and both will test you." His glowing eyes met the soldier's steady gaze. "I cannot tell you which will reach you first." The soldier's chest rose and fell in a steady rhythm. His heart did not race, his face did not betray fear. He had lived with danger before, and he would face it again. What unsettled him was not the idea of enemies, but the idea that this all came from something so small. A seat, a moment of kindness. He had given no thought to it, yet now it threatened to change everything. The station's docking bay grew louder outside, the clamor of armored units preparing. Voices echoing commands, ships humming with energy. The human could hear it all through the open doors, and he knew his journey was about to grow even more complicated. He could feel the weight of unseen eyes on him, some carrying respect, some carrying jealousy, and some carrying hatred sharp enough to cut through steel. As the guard signaled for the passengers to prepare for departure, the human soldier glanced once more around the cabin. He saw envy in the faces of nobles, fury in the eyes of merchants, and quiet awe in the expressions of a few younger travelers. It was all there, every emotion, every reaction, swirling like storms ready to clash. He knew now that his life would not remain his own. He had become a symbol, and symbols always drew both worshippers and assassins. The elder tapped his staff once against the floor, the sound sharp and final. "The path has begun," he said, "and there is no turning back, the dawn of a reputation." The great transport ship finally settled into silence as the last echoes of the guard's boots faded down the docking bay. The passengers sat stiff, some trembling, some glaring, some whispering as though afraid to even breathe too loudly. For them, the journey had changed forever. They would not remember the endless stars outside or the humming engines that carried them across the void. They would remember the bow, the salute, and the human who stood quietly at the center of it all. What had begun as a simple act of kindness was now a story carried by every mouth, a story that would not die. The human soldier remained calm, though inside his mind turned like a storm. He had been taught in his training that wars were started by kings, ended by generals, and written by historians. Yet here he was, a man who had done nothing but offer a seat, and already he could feel the weight of something greater than himself. He knew that stories had power, and in this galaxy of rigid traditions, one story was enough to build legends or to invite death. He tightened his jaw, steadying his breath, reminding himself that he had acted not for honor, not for recognition, but simply because it was right. The elder leaned on his staff, his body frail but his voice still carrying the weight of authority. He spoke softly, almost like a father to a son. "Do not underestimate what has begun today, human. You may believe you are small, but this moment will ripple through the stars. There will be those who honor you, and there will be those who hate you for the same reason. They will paint you as savior, as enemy, as prophet, and as threat. Your name will no longer be your own. It will belong to the galaxy." The soldier listened without reply. His silence was not born of ignorance, but of understanding. He knew the elder spoke truth. He had seen how quickly soldiers turned victories into legends, how easily whispers turned into banners, and he knew this would be no different. The only difference now was that it was his name on their lips, his act fueling their words, and though he had not sought it, he would not run from it either. Around the cabin, the passengers were already shaping the tale. A merchant muttered, "I saw it with my own eyes." The guard saluted him. Their commander bowed his head. "A human, can you believe it?" Another whispered with awe. The elder chose him. It means destiny. It means prophecy. Perhaps the humans are not as weak as we thought. Yet others spoke with venom. He tricked them. Somehow he fooled the Elder. He will spread his weakness like a disease, and if we do not stop him, he will bring shame to us all. Each voice carried a different version, each one twisting the truth into something new. By the time the story left this cabin, it would already be 10 stories, and each would spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The guard themselves had left without further word, their discipline unbroken, their silence heavier than thunder. Yet silence, too, was a weapon. For the guard to salute a human and then vanish without denial was as good as confirmation. It meant that in the eyes of the Empire, the act was real, undeniable, and binding. No argument, no protest, no denial from jealous nobles would erase the sight of gleaming armor saluting flesh and blood. The human soldier finally exhaled, a long, slow breath. He felt the weight of many eyes still fixed upon him, and he realized that this was only the first step. He had no choice but to continue forward. He had lived his life by simple principles. Help those who need it, stand where others fall, do what is right even when it costs you. But now those principles would be tested in ways he could not yet imagine. The Elder's words returned again in his mind. Honor is a crown, and a crown always draws blood. He wondered quietly how soon he would be forced to pay that price. The Elder shifted closer, his voice lowered so that only the human could hear. You must be ready, young one. Stories are more dangerous than swords. Swords cut the body, but stories cut the soul. And once they spread, there is no stopping them, already. Those who envy you are plotting already. Those who fear you are watching. You cannot hide. You cannot undo it. The dawn of your reputation has begun. The soldier met his gaze, his own voice steady and calm. Then I will walk the path not because I asked for it, but because it came to me. If stories are to be told, let them tell the truth, that I did not act for glory. I acted because it was right. His words were simple, but they struck the Elder deeply, for they carried no arrogance, no fear, only the quiet strength of a man who knew himself. The docking bay outside thundered with the movement of ships and soldiers. The transport doors were fully open now, and the passengers began to disembark. Some avoided the human, stepping wide as though his presence burned. Others brushed close, hoping to catch a glance at him, to say later that they had stood near him when it happened. Already he was no longer just a man. He was becoming a story, a symbol, a spark that would light fires in hearts across the stars. As the human stepped down from the transport, the Elder beside him, the vast alien station stretched out before them. Towers of black metal glowing with rivers of blue light. The banners of the guard hung high, their symbols etched into every wall. Above them, ships moved like predators across the sky, and somewhere deep within those towers, voices had already begun to whisper his name, some in respect, some in hate, and some in fear. The soldier did not look back. He walked forward into the unknown, his steps steady, his head unbowed. He had no crown, no throne, no army, yet already he carried something far heavier: reputation. In this galaxy, reputation could build empires, and reputation could destroy them. His had been born not on a battlefield, but in the simple act of giving up his seat, and that act, humble as it was, had shaken the stars. In the shadows of the station, unseen figures watched his every move. Some sent messages across hidden channels. Others sharpened blades and others prayed. The dawn of his reputation had begun, and with it came the promise of trials, betrayals, and battles yet unseen. The human soldier walked forward into a future written not by kings or generals, but by a single moment of kindness that no one could forget.